The Pokemon series is at a crossroads, and its formula needs to change. For years, the series has stuck to a relentless release schedule, with new titles or DLCs dropping almost every year. And while this pace helps keep the franchise in the spotlight, it's becoming increasingly clear that it's not sustainable for Game Freak. The shorter development cycles, coupled with the growing scope and complexity of the games, are taking a toll on quality, and the most recent titles, Scarlet and Violet, are a prime example of this. We've gone from 2D, linear, story-driven adventures to ambitious 3D open-world RPGs and a universe that continues to expand, which is a monumental leap that comes with significant challenges. Historically, larger gaps between generations allowed for more polish and innovation, but modern releases are squeezed even tighter by the addition of substantial DLCs. Although 2024 marks the first year since 2015 without a major release or DLC for the series, I believe this needs to be taken one step further, using other major Nintendo IPs as blueprints for success of the Pokemon Company and Game Freak. Typically, when you look closely at Nintendo's first-party development, you either see one studio focusing on a very similar style of game, but incrementally improving it with each release. Some great examples of Nintendo studios that do this are Monolith Soft with the Xenoblade series, and Nintendo EPD5 focusing on Splatoon and the Animal Crossing titles. The other development style you see within Nintendo is several studios focusing on their own niche within a larger IP. One example of this is the Zelda series, where you have EPD focusing on Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, whilst you have Grezzo focusing on the 3D top-down games like Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom. Another great example is the Mario series, where you have EPD8 focusing on 3D Mario games, whilst EPD10 focuses on 2D Mario. Game Freak, on the other hand, on the Switch alone, has developed 4 very distinct Pokemon titles, so Scarlet and Violet, Pokemon Legends Arceus, Sword and Shield, and Pokemon Let's Go, 4 major DLCs, a free-to-play Pokemon game, a remake of their previous IP, Pocket Card Jockey, and 2 brand new IPs, being Giga Wrecker Alt and Little Town Hero. Once you start to look at this bigger picture and see not only are Game Freak pushing themselves within the Pokemon series, but they're also stretching themselves thin as they continue to experiment with new IPs and ideas outside of the Pokemon series. And though it's important for the developers to keep their minds sharp and diversify, this is becoming less and less sustainable in the long term for the studio, and there needs to be a significant shift in how they're developing the Pokemon series moving forward. Like they've done for other major Nintendo IPs like Zelda and Mario, they need to bring in other Nintendo studios or partners to help develop the Pokemon series, more so than they've already done. There's several different ways they could handle this, but the main way I'm proposing is that Game Freak focuses on the main game / style of choice, whether that be the numbered generations or the new Pokemon Legends series, and other studios focus on remakes or spin-offs or games and styles that Game Freak isn't comfortable with. For example, what they've done with Ilka and BDSP. And Nintendo has a lot of great studios that they already work with or are owned by Nintendo who could do a lot with the Pokemon series. For example, Grezzo could easily bring a gorgeous top-down 3D style to the Pokemon series. Whether they handle remakes of existing titles or they continue the story of older generations, such as Generation 5 and 6, is up for debate, but both are very viable options. They've been trusted with Zelda several times, not only doing a remake, but also creating their own story in collaboration with Nintendo, so I can fully see them developing an extension to an existing generation where they develop existing or new lore rather than creating new stories in Pokemon altogether. I can absolutely see them creating a new game, but due to the chronological and ever-growing nature of the Pokemon series in comparison to the more standalone lore of the Zelda series, Game Freak may prefer to keep the next generations completely in-house, with other studios like Grezzo providing support, rather than the other way around. And I think that's quite a sensible idea. However, if they wanted to keep development entirely in-house, there are several Nintendo-owned studios that could come in and help. Monolith Soft or EPD3 could easily bring a more mature open-world spin to the Pokemon series. Both studios have had great success building amazing open-world titles that look and perform significantly better than other fully or semi-open-world titles that Game Freak has produced. Either studio could easily handle a more mature open-world style RPG, in the same way that Genius Sonority took the series in a new direction with Pokemon Colosseum and Pokemon XD. They could also very easily take on the Legends series if Game Freak wanted this to become a regular staple, whilst giving themselves time to focus purely on the next generation of Pokemon games. If Game Freak wants to continue building open world games, either studio would be strongly suited to provide significant support, and bring a wealth of knowledge and experience that Game Freak just doesn't quite have. I'd also love to see Genius Sonority come back and work on the Colosseum series, whether that be a new game or remakes. They were originally established to work on this series, but more recently have been working on more niche titles such as the typing adventure game on DS and Pokemon Cafe remakes. So seeing them return to more mainline games would be a fantastic opportunity for the studio. A little bit more out there, but Nintendo could bring on some indie studios to work on the Pokemon series. It's not unheard of for indie studios to take a stab at major Nintendo IPs, and one studio that could do an amazing job with Pokemon is Sabotage Studio, who are behind Sea of Stars, a gorgeous turn-based pixel RPG. They've already proved that they can build a gorgeous world in a pixel art style, similar to what the Pokemon series was once known for, and they have experience building turn-based RPGs, so bringing them on board to create a remake or expansion of an existing Pokemon game would be an absolute no-brainer. Another studio that could also do a great job would be Pixpil, who created Eastward, and though they have less experience with turn-based RPGs, they do have a great example of pixel art styles, and I think they would do a fantastic job with the series. Possibly controversial as well, but working with someone like the creators of Pokemon Unbreakable Ties would result in a gorgeous looking pixel game. And though it's unlikely that the Pokemon Company or Game Freak would work with a team like this, they've created an absolutely gorgeous game and it deserves to be acknowledged for what it is. In any way, providing Game Freak with significant support for developing the Pokemon series moving forward would not only allow for the series itself to flourish and be the best it could possibly be, it gives Game Freak the freedom to explore other IPs and ideas outside the Pokemon series without stretching themselves too thinly. Little Town Hero, for example, is one of my favourite games on the Switch, and I would love to see Game Freak take another shot at it with a sequel. And those are my thoughts on what I think Game Freak should do with the Pokemon series moving forward. What are your thoughts? Do you have any studios that you think they should bring in? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you all in the next one.